All right, good morning, everybody. Today we'll be looking at Workforce Go and the reports in Workforce Go. The focus for today really is going to be more on an overview for the reports, the essential skills you would need to customize the reports available to you through Workforce Go. And we'll look at that by looking at our attendance board reports, time off history report, and a My To-Do list. So through that, we'll do some customizations, show how to save the report so you don't have to build it each time. So the first thing we're going to look at is the attendance board report. If you're not using the attendance board now, it's something you can use for your dashboard or use to review staff, and it gives you the attendance snapshot for the day. So when we go into the menu up here in the top left corner, we're going to make sure we're on My Info, which is the single silhouette, and we can go to My Reports, to Time Reports, Time Allocation, and then Attendance Board. So depending on the number of employees assigned to you, your report's going to populate with those people. And so for me, it's 1,100 active people comes up on the list. And so we can look through this to customize to build this however we want it to. So for me, because I have so many people, I might want to do this by program, or if we're working at Head Start or law enforcement, adult corrections, places like that with a large number of people, we can even split this view up into whether it's by site, by location, that kind of customization to us, something that would be important. And so we can see what the default stuff is. We can get the employee ID, names, if there was time off approved for the people on the screen, whether they're punched in or out, and then their last punch in or punch outs, that kind of stuff. So one of the first things we want to do, or that we can talk about in customizing our reports, is on screen you can actually customize the size of the columns. So if you have information like this and not everything is fitting because we have too many columns, so we might have to scroll the screen to the right, or there's stuff that we don't need to see. If we put our cursor in between the two columns, we can see where in between first and last name where I have the cursor, that changes to the two arrows, which is directional, so it allows me to make the column smaller or larger, just so on screen we can see the information that's important to us, and it makes room for other information if we have a rather large report. We can do the same thing, another customization besides the sizing of the columns, is we can sort this how we want it to be sorted. We can see the up arrow next to employee ID that's telling us this report currently is defaulted to be in order by the employee ID, which is fine, but most of us don't refer to our employees as a number, we refer to them as their name. So searching for them might be a little more difficult because of the employee ID part. You can change the sorting. Click the drop down link next to first name and say we want it in ascending order from A to Z. And now we've got it in alphabetical order, so we can search for our people much easier going through that list rather than through an employee ID, which would list them all over the place. The report also, every default report gives us 10 rows per report. So this report ends up being 112 pages long if I wanted to go through and start using the arrow to go through and find people. You can actually click on this page link and change the number of rows per page. So if we needed this to be larger, if we have 20 people in our program, 15 people, or even more, we can change this to make this all fit onto one screen for up to 200 rows. So I don't think there's a program out there or a person that's managing people over 200 people. So you can make all of these people fit onto one screen by changing the page number to, so if I change that to 20, now we have 20 names rather than 10, and our page numbers have decreased by half. You can also use this to filter. So in each column, we get these boxes that allows us to choose how we want to filter this information. So we have equals, meaning it have to equal exactly how we type the name. So if we were looking for me, and we didn't type Lewis all the way, we just typed Lou, it's going to come up empty because nothing, no first name actually equals LOU. So when we're using these to search for people, frustration I encounter when I'm helping people with the reports is the use of these filters to make sure we're finding the information we want to get out of or out of Workforce Go. So be careful on what these filters are. There's equals, does not equal, or the name starts with or doesn't start with. Like is like a wild card. So if I use like and was looking for LOU, it's going to return to me any first name where LOU is present at any point in the name. So now that I do that, now we get 3 Lewises and 1 Lewis Wayne. So how we use these filters is going to be very important on the information we get returned back to us. It's good to start with using stuff like the names to learn how these filters work. That presentation I'll email to you guys has the chart of what all of these mean. Depending on the type of information we're looking at, the filters that are available to us can change. And with like when we get into numbers, we're going to have greater than, less than, and that kind of stuff. So we can filter to things like this to search by one person. So now if we were looking for me, we know that I'm in and the time I've punched in. And that my last clock information is today. We can also add or remove columns. So if we needed information, like all we wanted was the attendance status. We don't want time off or all this other information. Up here in the right corner is an ellipses, which says actions whenever you hover over it. We can go to add and remove columns. And this is going to give us a list of things that are available to add to this review on the left side and the stuff we currently have on the right side. So if I wanted to remove some boxes, I've checkboxed all of those and I just click remove. And when I apply this, the report's going to refresh now and it's just going to have our employee ID, the first, last name, and whether the person is in or out. We can do the same steps if we wanted to add, and we can add or remove at the same time. You can scroll through to find the stuff you wanted to add, which is usually a pretty significant amount of information related to the employee and then the type of report we're looking at. So we're at attendance board, so there'll be more information about that. And if I wanted to add something like program, and so I have access to multiple programs, some of you as well will have that. I can add that and then now see, okay, I want it where every first name is like Lou, and the program starts with finance. So when I refresh the report, now it'll filter out the other people who don't work in finance. The same thing would hold if I removed the LOU part and refresh this report. Now here's a list of everybody where finance is listed as the program and whether or not they're in or out. We can use the attendance board to change, only look at people that are in, do the same thing to see people that are out. So a pretty simple tool, especially if you have multiple locations or a lot of employees and you need to know who's in, whether or not we can call a meeting later on and know that each of the monitors are here, or if you have, like Head Start has multiple facilities, that kind of stuff. You can customize this to see where everybody's at right now. Has everyone punched in, that kind of business. Well, once we've built the report, because unless we save this, it's always going to go back to our default. Our next job is we have to save the report. So under the actions ellipses, we have some other options: save view as, manage views. So if we haven't used this view before, I'm going to save this and we can give it a name. So give it our name. If we want this to be the default, meaning each time I come back to this screen, when we load up the attendance board, this is the report that loads. Then we can do that and it'll replace the system's default one. So I've got it checked as default. If I wanted to share this with another person, I can do that and find the employee or employees I want to share that with. Hopefully they have the same level of access as you, so it becomes meaningful for it. Now we save that report, and so each time we come back here, this is the report that would load. If I click here, here's a list of the things I've done that I've created over time, mostly just for these training classes, of the different views available to us. You can change which ones you default by going to manage views. Here we are. If we wanted to go back to having the system one as default, we can change that and click that. If there's a view that we no longer need, I can delete that to clean that up for what we're doing. So a pretty way to create and customize the views, manage it how we want it to be managed. And by going to the actions, we can also use this to sort by multiple columns. So right now we're sorting on the first name. Granted, none of us have the same first name, but I can add a second criteria if I wanted to know, then by last name. So if there were two Lewises, the Lewis with a first last name alphabetically would then appear on the list in front of the other Lewis. And as I go through this, you're welcome to ask questions. In the bottom right corner is a chat box. So if there's something you want to see or want to ask about, please, you can do so at any time. And then finally, we can export the report. And right back to the actions area, there is an export option. Now we can start to choose many different formats available to us. We can include the header, footer. So like if I downloaded this current one as an Excel report now, we would get the report downloaded and there's the header information. So if we don't want this, we can actually uncheck that on the export. So then it would just be the columns themselves. Now, if we wanted to customize this more and add the information, like we didn't want all of finance. Finance, there's two locations, right? We have an upstairs and we have a downstairs. So I wanted this list to only have finance staff who work upstairs. We can click here where the filters are, and there's an employee option. So rather than choosing all, I'm going to browse, and I want specific employees because we only want the finance staff that work upstairs. So we get a list of all the employees. I can scroll through the 1,100 people and one by one pluck out all of us who work upstairs. Or we're going to customize and we're going to add that program. So here we are. This screen also defaults to 10 people. I'm going to expand this thing and who all works upstairs. So we go through with a little bit of work. We've got this. We're going to add it to our selection. So here now we can see the people we've selected. I can save this as a list. So we have our first location, then we can build the other one for finance downstairs. It's not that I have this finance upstairs. That group will always be saved, so I can use that group in other reports. So I only have to create this once. So if we have large programs like law enforcement or Head Start, we build our site or we build it by shift, whatever we're doing. We only have to do this the one time. And now we have this saved as finance upstairs or whatever you would call it. So now if I wanted to apply this, here we are now. It's just the people who work upstairs. And I have it defaulted to those who are in. So if this is what we wanted to do, now we can save this view. If I hit Save View, it's going to override that first report we made. So if we still wanted that available to us, the training finance attendance board, we don't want to save the view, we want to save it as and give it a different name. We'll call it that. I don't want it the default. This is not the one I want to load each time I navigate to the attendance board. So I'll save it here. There it is. This one remains in default. We can see it has the parentheses default. And so now we just have upstairs staff. And so very quickly I can see who's all in and know that if I was having a meeting with program monitors, they're all here. I can contact them, reach out and say, let's. With this attendance board, we can also add this to our dashboard. We can add the report just as it is here. We can also create a pie chart from this if we just wanted to see the differences between who's in and who's out. So if we change this to all and refresh the screen, so we have everyone who's here or everyone who's out. There's a little button here that lets us choose to view data, which we're viewing now, view charts, or view charts and data. So let's do that, view charts and data. We don't have a chart tied to this view yet. So we're going to create one. We have attendance status, which is this in or out. And we're going to count that row. And the title is row count by attendance status. So let's call it, oops. So we can call this finance upstairs attendance chart. Do we want it as a horizontal, vertical bar, line graph, pie chart? So let's do a pie chart and click save. So now we have handy dandy pie chart that just tells us the numbers, the count. We have 12 people in, 1 person out. If we like that, good, we've got what we need. We can go to our dashboard and add that pie chart now. We want to make changes, I can click on the ellipses and edit it, remove it, adjust the size if we wanted the chart bigger. Or if we needed a new chart based on the attendance board, we can do that as well. So now we can go to the home screen, our dashboard, and we can add this to a dashboard. So I already have a tab for time. Most of you probably have like a handful listed across if you've never modified it before. So if I wanted a tab just for this chart, I'm going to click on this wheel and click Edit Tabs. These are all the things that we might have on or off depending on your settings. I've turned all the other ones off and just have time. I can turn any of these other ones on and start adding information to it if I wanted to. I can add a custom tab. So instead of using the existing ones, I'm going to just create one called pie chart. So when we go there, there's no information yet. But if we go into the edit mode over here on the right corner, now it gives us the option to start adding stuff. We can pull from existing widgets that WFGO has pre-created for us. So anything that starts with my is pretty much your own personal information stuff, and the rest of it will be for the employees that you have assigned to you. So we can do widgets, or the other option is reports, charts, or to create a chart. So if we go to reports and charts, we'll be taken to a list of all the stuff we've saved before. So I have 113 reports that I've saved before. So I'm already looking for something that says upstairs. There it is. Check that and apply. Here's that report that we have. And then here's our pie chart. So if we're happy here, we can leave that. And now each time that we log in, we'd have this chart telling us what's happening with our staff. So if you haven't customized your dashboard, most of it I'll get the call that, hey, this thing is empty. So like if I turn on schedule, there's going to be some default stuff. And that's only going to work if you have employees assigned to you. And so you can go modify that, use that information, create your own custom stuff like we just did, stuff that fits you. The next thing I want to talk about is the My To-Do list. So when we request time off or timesheet change requests, as an example, the only person that's notified through Workforce Go is the person that's assigned as the employee supervisor. So here in finance, like the person that's assigned as my supervisor is Frida. Myrna is the program director. She doesn't get a notification when I request time off or if I want to make a change to my timesheet. So if I forgot to punch out and I have my timesheet change request, she doesn't know that that's happened. She actually has to go search for that or rely on an employee, one of us, to tell her that we have that waiting for her. So that's just the supervisor that gets that. But those who are assigned in the supervisor role, timekeeper, director roles, all can see those requests. So up here in the right corner, we have the bell that is basically our checkbox, our mailbox. So we can go there and click there and go through the list of stuff that's waiting for our review, our approval. And be working on that until the day timesheets are due, rather than trying to look through or possibly editing a timesheet while there's a pending request out there, which would cause a problem with the timesheet being able to be submitted and approved. And in line with that, report we can use is called time off history. So if we're not using that now, but we have people assigned to us, we want to keep track of what's happening with time off requests, we can use a report called time off history. So back into our menu, this time we're going to go to team, or to my team. We can go to time off, and then history. So I have it defaulted to just a view that has me. And so for this pay period, I don't have any time off requests. There's no request pending. There's no request that's been submitted. So when we come here, for me, we would see nothing. If you have employees assigned to you, you come here and log onto the screen, you're going to have a list of all the individuals who have requests for time off. And that's any new request or any pending requests and any rejected requests that you'd be able to see. It's queued to this pay period. So I don't have anything here. If I go to the next pay period, there we are. I have requests. I can see that it's new. So it's been submitted. So if I was the director, it's an acknowledgement to me now as the director that, okay, LJ has a couple of requests that I can go there and attend to. Now I can go to where my to-do list, look for LJ and say, okay, we're going to approve or decline his request. And this can be used for, of course, any employees that are out there, not just one specific one. You can modify this list to be for certain employees, or like the list I had created where we have our saved lists. Now we have finance upstairs. And I can add that, and then that would just be for those people rather than all of the staff assigned to me. Or if we built two different lists, we can go through and do that same thing. Now if I turn the filter off of me, and now we get a list of people for this pay period, work in finance, who's requested time, and you can see the status is approved, new. And this is the time off history. We can't make take an action from this screen, but certainly if we're the program director and we wanted to know what the status of our staff is, we got the attendance board to know what's happening today. We've got the time off history report to know what's happening. In this case, I have the pay period, of which we can say we don't want the pay period, we want a specific date range, or we want to do a calendar range and just have it for a month. We can see all of those things and anticipate the needs of our program. Okay, we have next pay period. We have LJ requesting time off, so his responsibilities covered and that kind of stuff. You can have that already in line while you're making a decision about someone else's leave. And as you can see, with each report, it's functionally the same steps that are taken no matter what type of report it is. Whether it's a report on time off history, a report on attendance board. If I was at the team information report, so I had a list of all the people for us. We can build a list and just have team information there. Every step we take is the same thing. We have what Workforce Go gives us as the default view for the report. Now we have the ability to go to actions and add or remove columns that fit what we need, to use the filters to get out the information that we just want to see. So from here, if we didn't want to see program or date requested, that kind of stuff. Maybe we didn't want to know last names, we just have first names. We can remove the last name. Now it just has a very nice name. We want to break this up differently. Right now, this report is being grouped by the date requested. So if I wanted to break this up and I don't want to know it by date requested, so we can save this by name instead if we don't want it by day. You can see request by individual. But the customization is pretty much up to you. As long as we practice using these add remove columns, doing the filters like on the employees, we don't want a list of all of our staff. We work in multiple programs, like can split that out so you don't have to constantly see all of this stuff mixed together. With nothing else coming in, I've got one last thing and then we'll wrap this up. So in addition to Workforce Go, Intact obviously also has some of our payroll information. Intact is not going to be as in-depth as Workforce Go is. Workforce Go, we're going to be able to get attendance information, timesheet information, all of that stuff. Intact stores the financial cost of our payroll activity, and that's it. We can actually go to the Intact Report Center. And so for those of you who have dual Workforce Go and Intact access, when I go to the Report Center, there's going to be a list of financial reports. So if I search by payroll, all these gold starred reports are reports we can use for payroll. We have payroll fringe, gross and fringe reports. We want to see it by funding source, by month. So if we did by funding source, this doesn't have the employee ID in the name. So we're just going to see the cost and totality by funding source. But if we wanted to know the cost by employee, we can use the ones that have summarized by employee ID in the title. So if I wanted to know the cost of a person by program, so if we have someone that works in one program and does work for another program, we wanted to know the cost of that payroll or to make sure that it's being charged correctly, we could run this report, filter that by who the employee is, and include the information we have access to, and get that information back out. Now we can see, okay, was so-and-so charged correctly to program 1 and then program 2? We can see that by funding source. So if we have people who are getting paid across multiple funding sources, you can see that, of course, on your timesheets. But ultimately, what we're trying to do is make sure that the charges are expensed across multiple funding sources. So if you have grants where people are being charged through 2 or 3 different grants, are they being charged correctly? You can come here and view this report, do the same information, enter your program, checkbook, a funding source if we wanted one specific one, and then the employee's information to see if that stuff is coming out correctly or as you anticipated. And then we get a mix of both options, just fringe, gross and fringe, and then gross. So if we wanted just no insurance information, we're just going to use the gross information. Well, if we want to include all of the payroll cost of the person, then we're going to look for payroll, gross, and fringe. All right. Well, that's all I have. If we have no more questions, have a good rest of your day.